I have briefly set out the purpose and procedure of the inquiry, and we are now going to officially start with the program of the day. And I'm going to request our first respondent to join us in front. The first respondent is Dr. Ferrial Adam. She is from WaterCAN. I'm going to request Dr. Adam just to join us here. You can take your seat over there, Dr. Adam. Welcome, Dr. Adam. Finally, we meet face to face. We've had many media interviews together, but we've never met formally. All right, Dr. Adam, welcome. Welcome to this inquiry. I am required by law to administer an oath or to take an affirmation. May I request you to stand? Which do you prefer, the oath or affirmation?
Affirmation, please.
Affirmation. For the record, please state your full names.
Ferrial Adam.
Thank you. Please repeat after me, Dr. Adam. I solemnly affirm.
I solemnly affirm.
That the evidence that I shall give.
That the evidence that I shall give.
Shall be the truth.
Shall be the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
Thank you so much. You may be seated. Right, Dr. Adam, you've made or you've submitted a written submission to the Human Rights Commission. I'm going to allow you 15 minutes to address the panel. We have a very long program, and we would like to finalize the program today, or the first day's program still today. So I'm going to allow you 15 minutes to address us. We have gone through your submission, believe it or not, we have. So, and I can assure you that your submission will definitely be accommodated, or parts of the submission will definitely be accommodated in our final report. So you may just provide us with a high-level summary of what is contained in the submission, and after that, I'm going to request the panel members to put questions to you, if any. Over to you, Dr. Adam.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioner, fellow members of the Human Rights Commission, colleagues and friends. The Gauteng water crisis is not simply a story about drought, bulk supply constraints, or too little water in the system. It is a systemic human rights crisis that is fed by governance failure, infrastructure neglect, poor to no financial controls, corruption, and very weak transparency. It is the result of failures by multiple organs of state to maintain, fund, monitor, and govern the water services system in a way that ensures reliable access to sufficient, safe, acceptable, and affordable water. The taps did not run dry overnight. This crisis was budgeted for, ignored, and allowed to deepen. While all levels of government has got us here, and I have to say that because we do know that all levels of government has got us here, the way that this crisis is now manifesting is as a crisis at local government failure. And not only in Johannesburg, not only in Gauteng, it is a national issue. In Gauteng, inequality is now visible in water pressure, tanker access, and who can afford backup systems. This submission focuses mainly on the city of Johannesburg and its wholly owned entity, Johannesburg Water. That focus is due to time and resource constraints, but WaterCAN urges the Commission to apply similar scrutiny to other Gauteng municipalities. For example, in Ekurhuleni, 39 million rand on a sewer pipe project, no pipes. In Mfuleni, 24 million rand spent on 30 toilets, 800,000 rand per toilet, seriously. Tshwane, the Hammanskraal issue continues after all these years. It's 25, maybe even longer. Our submission deals with several areas of concern. In the time available, I will focus on the key themes. These include failures in how equitable share funding is used to support free basic services, the city's decision to provide 6 kilolitres of free water to every household, regardless of income, the use of sweeping accounts that allow water revenue to be held and potentially used elsewhere in the city, the rise of water mafias and weak procurement and governance controls, and the lack of an intergovernmental response and how such institutions can be held accountable. The failure to maintain and renew infrastructure is a rights issue. A municipality cannot rely indefinitely on emergency measures while known infrastructure risks continue to accumulate. The rights violation lies not only in the absence of water from taps, it also lies in the state's repeated failure to prevent, disclose, plan, fund, and remedy known risks to access to water. And I have to add, when I talk about water, I'm talking about sanitation as well. WaterCAN supports the Commission's inquiry, but we caution that this must not become another inquiry that goes nowhere. Gauteng has already seen task teams, committees, bomb squads, even presidential interventions, but residents are still waiting for reliable water. The constitutional right to water cannot survive on press statements and task teams. We ask the Commission to provide clear direction with monitored actions, specific responsibilities, and firm timelines, and to use the powers at your disposal to demand action. This crisis cannot continue. WaterCAN accepts that bulk supply constraints matter. We accept that Rand Water has a role, but the central failure is in the municipal delivery system. I have to add that Rand Water also needs to understand that they cannot operate within a vacuum. So when systems are failing in a municipality, they can help in those regards. The infrastructure that carries treated water from bulk supply to residents need to be monitored more securely, and that where municipalities are weak, that Rand Water needs to understand that and not say that they only respond to the minister. Infrastructure is deteriorating. We know that. Reservoirs, towers, pump stations, pipelines are damaged, collapsing, vandalized, or inadequate. On the sanitation side, sewers overflow, pump stations fail, and wastewater treatment works are damaged. We have laid criminal charges against the city of Joburg in 2023 for Grootkopies and Bushkopies wastewater treatment works. The blue drop, no drop, and green drop reports show Gauteng's drinking water treatment systems are not necessarily the worst in the country, but if you break it down to the municipalities and not just the metros, the smaller ones, it's really bad. And it does not mean that household water access is secure. An example, Mfuleni has a non-revenue water score of 70.8%. They lose 70% of their water before it even gets to people. On paper, Gauteng municipalities such as Johannesburg should be able to address much of the sanitation infrastructure. But like in Johannesburg, available capital is often not effectively spent. Projects are poorly managed, municipalities lack capacity, tenders are manipulated, and corruption undermines delivery. In Johannesburg, the crisis is uneven. Some areas experience repeated dry taps, low pressure, water load shedding, tanker dependence, and real hardship. Informal settlements often face permanent, inadequate access to water. Other areas experience inconvenience rather than deprivation. For example, when Joburg Water cannot pay its contractors, the first thing they stop is the tanks that have to go to informal settlements. That means that people don't have water for days. This raises serious equality concerns. The heart of our submission really is the financial relationship between the City of Joburg and Joburg Water. We argue that Joburg Water's financial position is compromised and will continue to be compromised until city-level financial decisions are made to ensure that delivery of services to people happen. We cannot have a city that increases the number of board members from 86 in 2022 to 385 in 2026. By the way, I mentioned this at the Mayor's Lekgotla, and I was laughed at and said that this is not true. But then why is it in the budget? And that needs to be investigated. I was told then, actually, there are subcommittees. Why are we paying for board members and subcommittee members equaling 385 people? Where levies are surreptitiously increased and added to people's bills. Where a budget speaks of other losses, literally in the budget they say other losses, of about 13 billion rand, but we're not sure what those other losses are. Residents pay for water, but it is not clear that money collected for water is protected and spent on water-related needs. The lack of will to ensure that the budget for water and sanitation is ring-fenced with urgency is concerning. To us, it feels as if the can is being kicked down the road and is to placate many of us who are calling for ring fencing. We'll do it next week, we'll do it next month, we'll do it in 3 months. It's not happening. While funding is clearly tight, especially given the collapse of existing infrastructure and the need to build new capacity, there are strong indications that funds are being badly managed, while corrupt networks continue to thrive, not only in Joburg, but all across. We need to stop the leaking bucket of money to thieves. That is the core concern. One of the first issues is free basic services as well. Municipalities receive equitable share funding from National Treasury to support free basic services for indigent households. But the City of Johannesburg appears to move this money into general municipal funding without proper ring fencing. And National Treasury response to COJ, by the way, in the last 2 weeks when they sent the letter, was a threat to the equitable share, which is actually a problem because then you are threatening the most vulnerable who don't have water. It is therefore unclear whether Johannesburg Water receives the correct subsidy for free basic water and sanitation it provides, and that needs to be investigated. The estimated cost of providing free basic water to all formal households is about 498 million a year. By comparison, the city's stated cost of providing all free services to informal settlements is recorded at less than 1 million rand a year. That appears unrealistic and completely unfair. Surcharges are another serious concern. Johannesburg Water charges surcharges on certain water tariffs, but its budget does not show surcharge revenue going back to Johannesburg Water. In essence, residents are paying for water twice, once through their tariffs and again through dry taps, tankers, and lost dignity. That raises a simple question. If residents are paying water-related surcharges, where does that money go? At a time when Joburg Water is under severe strain, surcharge revenue should help maintain infrastructure, reduce losses, and improve service delivery. If it is diverted somewhere, it weakens the very system residents are paying to support. We ask the Commission to interrogate this issue as well. There are also questions about money flowing from Johannesburg Water back to the city, which is the famous sweeping arrangement. Johannesburg Water pays hundreds of millions of rand each year in intercompany operation costs and records intercompany interest. These costs need clear explanation. Then there is the sweeping account. Joburg Water's annual report says all its cash is swept daily to the city of Joburg. By the end of June 2024, we know about this. The 2.8 billion of Joburg Water money was recorded in the city's sweeping account. Joburg Water's total loans to the city shareholder that year were 4 billion. This is alarming because the money is treated as a loan to the shareholder with no fixed repayment terms. In plain language, the city can hold Joburg Water's money, and it's not clear when or whether that money will return to the water entity. We have asked continuously, where is this 4 billion? The mayor says, no, it's being used, but where? We want to see. Debt impairment is another major concern. Joburg Water and the city of Joburg have a serious problem with uncollected revenue. The predicted figures for debt impairment continue to rise from 5.13 billion in 2025 to 6.012 billion in 2027. If this impairment is treated as an annual expense, it is included when calculating the revenue needed to run the service, and therefore affects the tariffs charged to paying customers. It is unreasonable to expect customers to carry this cost indefinitely. There should be a cap on the level of debt impairment that Joburg Water is allowed to load onto tariffs. The submission also deals with vandalism, and it applies to all of Gauteng. If you hear anyone, they'll talk about, we don't have water because of vandalism. And the city often refers to vandalism as a major problem. We do not deny that vandalism exists, but its cost is not properly quantified, and there does not appear to be a clear strategy to address it. Also, importantly, not all vandalism should be understood only as mindless destruction. So what the city does is that some incidents which are a result of desperate attempts to access water are deemed as vandalism. If people are breaking into infrastructure because they have no reliable water supply, the response cannot simply be policing and charging people. The city must also address the underlying failure to provide basic services. We ask the Commission to require the City of Joburg and Joburg Water to account for the scale, causes, and costs of vandalism and to address the root causes. And this goes to every single municipality in Gauteng and in the country. Water and sanitation revenue must be protected and used for water and sanitation. Joburg Water records annual surpluses, and its annual reports show an accumulated surplus if annual surpluses are added from 2023 to the present, the accumulated figure could reach 18 billion. Again, where is this money? This issue is urgent because long-promised ring-fencing of water and sanitation budgets keep being delayed. Ring-fencing is not an administrative technicality. It is essential to restoring the water systems and protecting residents' rights. Ring-fencing is a tool. It does not have to be forever, but it can help to kind of buffer what's going on right now. National Treasury has changed infrastructure grant incentives to encourage better governance in metro trading services such as water, sanitation, electricity, and refuse removal. This is a good strategy, but we question whether the money is actually reaching Joburg Water. Our submission points to discrepancies between National Treasury's records of infrastructure-related grants and the city's own records. It also shows that increased grant funding does not appear to translate into increased Joburg Water capital expenditure. In fact, Joburg Water's capital spending is effectively flatlining, given the growth in population, the growth in demand. Their spending is flatlining despite the scale of infrastructure failure. We want infrastructure grants and international loans to be clearly linked to specific projects, with public information on what the funds are spent on and why those projects were prioritized. City of Joburg has 4 big loans over the last 18 months. Where is that money going if they keep saying that they're bankrupt? Water tankers, JoJo tanks, and bottled water may be necessary during emergencies, but they're not a substitute for reliable piped water. A tanker is not a water strategy. It is evidence that the system has already failed. They are often unreliable, poorly communicated, inaccessible, vulnerable to corruption, and inadequate for household and sanitation needs. It has resulted in elderly people using their SAHRC grants to pay young people to run to the water tanks and bring them water. If the SAHRC grants are so low and they're using this amount every day, even if it's 20 Rand for every run, it's a lot of money for someone that doesn't have. Once again, our submission is particularly concerned about procurement. The lack of transparency around procurement, despite financial laws requiring openness, enables corruption. The water mafia is no longer just about water tankers. It's the whole value chain, and that needs super investigation across the province. For example, when Joburg Water ran a tender in January 2024 for potable water storage tanks, on an as and when required basis for 3 years, it published a list of 39 bidders, but did not publish their bid offers, saying it was not practical to publish. The list of bidders was published, but the final award was not. If tanker systems become permanent, corrupt networks become entrenched, and the incentive to repair permanent infrastructure weakens. WaterCAN argues that Gauteng's water crisis involves several institutions, including municipalities, Rand Water, provincial and national government departments and National Treasury. But also, let's not forget civil society. By the way, we've noticed that you've had your hearings on civil society and then government people coming another day. I think you should reconsider that so that we can hear what government is saying at these hearings and they can hear what we are saying. Municipalities are responsible for delivery, while other institutions provide funding, resource and oversight, but residents experience the failure as one crisis. The Commission should not allow institutions to shift blame. Instead, it should recommend a single public remedial plan with clear responsibilities, deadlines, funding resources, and reporting duties. We ask you, the Commission, to find that Gauteng's water crisis is a systemic human rights concern requiring monitored, enforceable, and time-bound remedial action, with regular public reporting on progress. We ask the Commission to require municipalities to prioritize water and sanitation as essential services and to compel the City of Joburg to provide full records of allocated budgets and audited spending on water and sanitation projects over the past 10 years. We further call for the ring-fencing of water and sanitation revenue, the return of accumulated surpluses to water entities, greater transparency in procurement, and a national discussion on revenue collection and infrastructure vandalism. We also call for all municipal water quality results to be made publicly available. Till today, we still have to go and get prior requests in other parts of the country to get water quality results, which everybody should know what you're drinking is safe to drink. For water tankers and static tanks to be managed more transparently with GPS and volume tracking, and for long-term water supply solutions to be developed for informal settlements so that reliance on JoJo tanks and tanker deliveries is reduced and ultimately ended. In closing, WaterCAN submission is not only about taps running dry. Again, I'll repeat, it is about money, governance, rights, and accountability. And it's about risk management. We don't have proper risk management. If you think about the fact that we are going to have a super El Nino in December, we need to start preparing, because I can tell you the systems are going to start breaking down even before. The crisis was foreseeable. It has been worsened by poor planning, weak financial controls, infrastructure neglect, secrecy, and corruption. And it is going to be exacerbated by climate change. The crisis is not only the absence of water from taps, it is the repeated failure of the state to prevent known risks, disclose information. The cost of inaction will not be measured only in money, but in public health, lack of education, inequality, and social instability. The Commission is therefore asked not to produce another report that disappears. It is asked to give clear direction with monitored actions and firm timelines, because for residents, this is not an abstract governance problem. It is a daily struggle for dignity, health, safety, and survival, and it cannot continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adam. I allowed you to exceed your 15 minutes.
I know, I'm sorry.
Because we really value and appreciate the work that WaterCAN is doing. And I found your testimony extremely valuable for this inquiry. How we're going to do things now is I'm going to put 3 questions to you. I'm going to request you to respond to the questions, otherwise you might be overwhelmed with questions. And then thereafter I will ask Ms. Sitole to put her questions. You can respond to those questions, and after Ms. Sitole, Ms. Parsonage will put her questions to you. When you started with your testimony, you indicated that there is inequality with regards to tanker access, water tanker access. Now, it is, local government, through their constitutional mandate to provide municipal services, are the vehicles to ensure that equality is achieved, and also dignity for everyone. So the first question that I'm asking, if you can just elaborate on the inequality part, especially with regards to water tanker access. Then thank you for the helpful information on financial mismanagement. What, in your view, what is the, when you, and we've conducted many of these inquiries, and when we ask municipal managers to explain to us the challenges that they face, the first challenge they would identify is we don't have money, we don't have funds to provide services, and we've made findings on this already. What is the extent of financial mismanagement in the Gauteng province, in your view? And then secondly, what is the prevalence of financial mismanagement in Gauteng as a whole? In other words, have you identified financial mismanagement in all the municipalities in the Gauteng province? Lastly, you've referred to vandalism, and I'm sure we can include the theft of municipal infrastructure as well. But in your view, when I have these media media engagements that I referred to earlier, and also when I address inquiries like these, I always say that when you refer to vandalism, you might as well refer to municipal infrastructure sabotage as well, sabotage specifically. We have found that municipal infrastructure in other provinces is sabotaged by municipal or by service providers appointed by municipalities. Also, there's the involvement of municipal officials, collusion between service providers and municipal officials, even municipal councillors, definitely municipal councillors. And the reason for this is to continue appointing service providers to provide, for example, the water tankering service. What is the extent, in your view, of the sabotage of municipal infrastructure to benefit service providers, obviously, because they are getting paid, but also municipal staff members and municipal councillors? If you can just respond to those few questions, and then I'm going to ask Ms. Sitole to come in after you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So in terms of inequality in tankers, I think that there's a few things that, when it comes to why I refer to water tankers and JoJo tanks as inequality kind of mechanisms. Because there's a few things. One is that it's the way the city would provide water. If it was not informal settlements, would they have put in the proper infrastructure that people need, where they can have a sustainable supply of water? But there's no urgency in that. There's no move to make that happen, because I think it's areas in terms of more vulnerable, low-income areas where that is happening, and that's the inequality. I think that it's the lack of understanding that you provide one tanker during outages, and lack of understanding of household numbers, where tanks run out in one street, and people start fighting with each other. So I think it's the lack of understanding that you're not sitting with two people in a household that's going to just take a bucket and be fine. And that shows the inequality that exists in terms of water tankers. And then also, when government does not pay their bills, and we know that Joburg Water, because of the lack of budget, lack of money, not budget, when the minute they can't pay contractors do not supply water, and the people affected first are the ones being supplied by water tankers on a daily basis. And there's no move. Now, Let me give you another example. Selby, in the city of Johannesburg, have been given water, for the last year almost, their only source of water is through water tankers. Now you tell me, if that was Sandton, would that happen? No, that would have been fixed long time ago. And that is why I say that that's the inequality that we're seeing. In terms of financial mismanagement, yes, we also get told we don't have money. We don't have money, we don't have money. And then you see the leaking buckets. You see, where's the levy that you have been charging people for the last while? Where's that money gone to? Where are the 4 loans that you've taken out as City of Johannesburg? Those kind of questions need to be asked. And if the National Treasury Minister can write to the city to say there's something up with your finances and we're going to have a more stricter control, there's definite financial mismanagement. And the mayor can say what it is and everything's accounted for, but is it really? So that's part of the financial mismanagement we're talking about. In terms of why must you have 385 people on a board that you're paying? So there's little kind of things like that that accounts for big money that can be used to actually fix the system. The fact that the city has agreed to the wage dispute, and where are they going to get the money from? So those are the kinds of things where I think it's mismanagement. They can agree to some things, and they can find the money for some things, but to fix, I mean, what was the wage agreement? 10 billion, I think? Where's the same amount of money for infrastructure? Joburg Water gets a budget of about 1.7 billion for capital expenditure. But then where's the 10 billion going to come from? So when it chooses them, they can find the money. We hosted the G20. The city got money for the G20. Roads were fixed, grass was cut, traffic lights worked. Where did they get the money from? So when they want to, they can find the money. And I just think that we're putting it into the wrong pockets and the wrong emphasis and the wrong priorities. That, for me, is the mismanagement. In terms of corruption, let's look at the water tanker contract that was awarded to in Johannesburg. Not only Johannesburg, Tshwane had to stop some of the contracts. We know that the previous mayor had to stop the awarding of tenders on water tankers. This is going on all across. But in Joburg, that contract was challenged. The court found that it needed to be overturned. But the people that have the contract are now just extending it by saying, well, we're going to challenge this, and for as long as they challenge it, they'll be getting the money for the water contract. So those are the kinds of things that I think there's mismanagement, there's corruption, and there are things that are seeping through. Every day we speak to officials, and I really wish we could get more whistleblowers that talk about the kind of things that are happening. We've been told that there are officials who have shares in water companies. We can't prove it, but that's the kind of things that we've been told. So those add to the list of corruption and financial mismanagement that goes on. In terms of vandalism, yes, like I said to you, we find that there's 2 types of vandalism. Definitely there's vandalism, there's 3 types of vandalism. One is the vandalism that actually needs the parts and they're selling those parts for whatever reason. The other type of vandalism is because people want to maintain the contracts that they have to provide water. And then there's the third one, which we think is not really vandalism, but is what city is calling vandalism and putting all their efforts into dealing with that, is people just trying to get water because they don't have. And that is, it definitely needs to be defined differently, and the responses need to be defined, need to be different in terms of all of those levels of vandalism.
Thank you. I'm going to request Ms. Sitole to put her questions. Let's limit it to 3 questions maximum. Ms. Sitole.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Dr. Adam, for your submission. So I'll try and limit my questions to 3. Oh, okay. Is it on now? Yes, thank you. I was saying thank you for your submissions. We really appreciate the submissions. I'll try and limit my questions. So in the various engagements we've had with the municipalities in the province, we often hear the reoccurring issue of aging infrastructure from the municipalities. So I wanted to ask as WaterCAN if from your work you are of the view that enough resources are being put to address the issue of aging infrastructure, because we can't have municipalities saying the same thing for a period of over 5 years. If you know you've got aging infrastructure, then something needs to be done. Are there enough resources being put to address that issue? My second question, one of the issues that come up when we engage with municipalities, particularly with the city of Joburg, is that the municipalities are unable to meet the ever-increasing population in the province. Is there adequate planning from the municipality's side to try and accommodate the ever-increasing population? We know with urban migration, Gauteng as a province gets a lot of people who come to the province to try and explore economic opportunities. Is in your view, the defense that we've got increasing population, so that's why we're not able to meet everyone's demands justified? And then lastly, on the issue of the vandalism of infrastructure, in your view, are the municipalities providing enough resources to safeguard the infrastructure and guard against the vandalism? And maybe tied to that question, if you can just give us an update on the criminal charges that you said you've laid against the city of Johannesburg. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Itole. Dr. Adam, I'm going to limit you to a response of 2 minutes
I'll try.
maximum.
I will try.
I'm going to stop you after 2 minutes.
Okay, do that. I'll be very quick. In terms of are enough resources being put, no. In terms of aging infrastructure, no. That's exactly what we're saying. Joburg Water has a very good turnaround plan, but we need to act on it now, and they need the budget to deal with it. So we still have at least 40 leaking reservoirs, but they need the funding. They need to ring-fence that money, and then they'll be able to deal with it. So I don't think adequate work is being done in terms of getting resources to deal with the aging infrastructure. In terms of population increase, I think this is important, because often when you speak to government, they'll say, we're using too much, people are using too much, our per capita usage is too high. But they don't break that per capita usage into wealthy areas, industries, poor communities, and actually then give us a sense of who is using more than others. They just give this blanket amount. Population doesn't increase overnight. It's been years. It's not as if it just happened yesterday. It's been 10 years that warning's been coming. So it comes to planning, very poor planning, and it links to the siloism within a city, where planning doesn't speak to water, does not speak to electricity, and so that's part of the problem. It's not saying everything is government puts it on us. It's we using too much, we all coming into the city, but actually it's the planning, it's the kind of knowing how to deal with all of these things that they haven't been doing, and the siloism, vandalism. No, they're not doing enough in terms of dealing with and I mean the kind of vandalism where it's linked to the mafias, it's linked to that, not the ones where, and even the ones where people are trying to get water to survive, they're not dealing adequately with that. Because what they do, they go and close that off, and still the community has no water. We've seen people dredge mud water out because that's where they need. Criminal charges are still being investigated with the National Prosecuting Authority, so as yet we don't know.
All right, thank you, Dr.
How's that
Adam.
quick enough for you, Commissioner?
You did it in 2.5 minutes. All right, Ms. Hunter Parsonage, your questions, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. Dr. Adam, my question is about accountability. We've had, the municipality has struggled, and I mean, the Commissioner has struggled in Hammanskraal, and Mfuleni has been ongoing forever. We haven't managed to get anybody in jail. Is there a different way of holding municipalities accountable? Because we're sort of struggling with the tools in front of us, does WaterCAN have ideas of a different way of accountability?
Thank you, Dr. Adam. Very
Thank you.
difficult question.
This is a question that we've been also dealing with in terms of our way of working, because it's not enough to just deal with the corruption after the fact, because you can't get the money back and you can't prove all of it. So what we're looking at is we're working, in fact, next week, Monday, we have a meeting that we're holding, and it's together with the SIU, to look at how do we identify points of corruption before they happen. So we all know where it's happening. So there are these weak points, and we're looking at, we need to identify the starting points of where corruption happens so we can stop it before it begins. The other issue is that we're saying that with accountability, we need transparency. And there's not enough transparency on information. And the more information we get, the more we can hold people accountable and start seeing people getting fired. Because it's not only government, it's also companies that need to be held responsible and blacklisted. So those kind of things are not happening, and that's what we're pushing for. Because often when we talk about corruption, everybody's looking at government, while the companies that have done this keep getting contracts around the country. And we're saying, no, it needs to be a name and shame. So that, as civil society, is what we think needs to happen.
Dr. Adam, thank you very much for your testimony, and let me reiterate what I said earlier. We really appreciate and value the work that you are doing, and that is also why I allowed you to exceed your 30 minutes or so. I think the testimony that you provided is extremely helpful. It really sets the tone for the rest of the inquiry, and we again appreciate your attendance.
Thank you.
You are welcome to observe proceedings over the next 3 days and to listen to the testimonies of government, provincial government, national government, even Chapter 9 institutions, etc., and to also hold them accountable. So thank you. You are released.
Thank you so much.
The next respondent